Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here at the Indonesia Economic Forum. I'll give you a little bit of a background on what we do at the Indonesia Economic Forum. We are in our 11th year. So the Indonesia Economic Forum started out in 2014, working together with the World Economic Forum. So when World Economic Forum wanted to expand into different parts of the world, that was their plan at that time. They partnered with us, and we set up Indonesian Economic Forum in order to support them. But 2 years later, the World Economic Forum decided they're not going to do that. So many of the partners were allowed to continue what they were doing. And we are one of them who chose to continue what we were doing because we decided we would focus within Indonesia, while as World Economic Forum looks at activities outside. Ever since then, we have been sending a studio to Davos, and we've been sending our journalists to Davos, and we do coverage of what happens in Davos. But we are not an official linked to World Economic Forum. We are just a partner. And the Indonesian Economic Forum just recently, 8 months ago, was invited by ASEAN Secretariat to set up the ASEAN Economic Forum. So that's the new project that has just been kicked off. And the ASEAN Economic Forum's goals, which has been given to them by the government, is to set up the Davos of Asia. And we are going to do that in Bali, in Ubud. And if Davos is held every January, the ASEAN Economic Forum would be held every April. So that's the current plan of the ASEAN Economic Forum. Essentially, the idea is to bring together people who are in the industry sector, because the ASEAN Summit takes care of the interaction between the government, the politicians, and the bureaucracy, etc. What's missing in the ASEAN equation is the connect to industry. So that's what they entrusted us to do, because we do that very well for Indonesia Economic Forum. Indonesia Economic Forum really is a group of thought leaders who are in the private sector, who engage with government sector and the public sector and various other parts of society. We have foundations who are members of IEF. Today is a special event, mainly because we had this 2-day event with AWS and the Collaborating Organizations Forum. So you could see that actually 80% of the participants here are from the AWS Collaborating Organizations, and they are from more than 10 countries here who are represented. So welcome to all of you, and a big round of applause for yourselves. The Economic Forum actually has a very focused approach towards the roundtables that we do, because roundtables are in fact, roundtables are all about advocacy. It's about advocacy about policy. It's advocacy about actionable steps that we can take to make certain directions real. So we focus on actionable outcomes, which is a little different from rather being focused on theory and academia kind of an approach. And I'm proud to say that the transformative journey of the Ministry of Education in the last 6 years, or I would say 8 years, under the Minister Nizam Makarim, much of its policy has been influenced by the white paper that we brought out in 2019. So we had almost AWS, Microsoft, we had Intel, we had about 50 industry partners who gathered together, and we brought out a 100-page document on how the Ministry of Education must transform the sector of skilling in Indonesia. 80% of those programs have got adopted by the ministry. And in fact, Rani knows that, because some of her programs, which she had pitched, also were part of that programs which are now being implemented. Unfortunately, Professor Nizam, who is the former Director General of Higher Education, could not be here today. He was supposed to be here this morning, but they are having, the cabinet of Indonesia is changing. 20th of October, just hardly 2 weeks away, the new president gets installed, along with a change in the cabinet. And the current cabinet, the Minister of Education is Nizam Makarim. You may have heard his name. He's the founder of Gojek. So Gojek, his success in Gojek and his success in digital earned him this opportunity to be the Minister of Education, and he's been by far the most transformative Minister of Education. They are having a gathering in Bali as we speak to celebrate the success of that team, because in 2 weeks he's not going to be the minister anymore. So the entire team is actually in Bali, and Professor Nizam was supposed to have taken the flight last night and come here to attend our session. But Nadim has extended the program by half a day. So Professor Nizam messaged me late last night that he couldn't get onto the flight, so he sends his best regards to the forum here. He has spoken many times in the past, so I will try and see if we can get a message from him out here for the group. And anyway, so I'd like to also introduce a very special guest today, Jeff Cohen. Jeff on my left here is the mission director of USAID. The reason we wanted Jeff to be here is because I would say single-handedly an organization that's behind a lot of skilling programs is USAID for many years, not just recently. And I've been involved in the programs of USAID since I think 22 years ago. Consistently, they have been a stakeholder with the Indonesian government in playing a role in how the education sector can be developed and transformed. And it's not just Indonesia. I think USAID as an organization all over the world has been doing this. Many of these people here, Jeff, are part of your network in other countries. Many of them have worked with USAID. So a big round of welcome to Jeff. Additionally, I would like to recognize a few people who have made it here. Tejas Vashi is the head of AWS Restart globally, and he's here. Most of you know him. And we have Rani Birchmore, who is the head of the Restart program in this region, the APAC region, and especially for the ASEAN nations and all of you who are here. Nigel Watson is the head of TNC, which is training and certification of AWS. Arvind Bali, welcome. He just landed up from India. He's the chairman of Cultus Education in India, which Nalin is building up. And I won't go around the room one by one, but I will give everybody a chance to introduce yourself very briefly. Again, this is like 20 seconds. Just tell us your name, your organization, and the kind of music that you like to listen to. Just your genre. Is it jazz? Is it R&B? Is it Bollywood? Whatever it is. Okay. The reason we do this is because yesterday we did a round of introductions with your hobbies. Because I found that my learning has been people love to work with each other if they like each other. And if they like each other, you got to know what are the other things they do apart from what just work, right? So maybe we can start on the far side of the room. If you can have the mic. Is somebody helping us with the mic here, Polly? Yeah. If you could pass the mic down to the far end or the left end. Okay, or right end, whichever. And then, yeah, start from here. Just your name, which organization you're from, and the kind of music you like. We'll just do a quick round and then we'll get started. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, Pak Jeff, Pak Sachin and all. My name is Wahonoko Paraking from USAID Padu.
What music do you like?
Music. I like jazz and pop, and I like photography too. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Lindsay Jaco from USAID Padu, and I'm a big fan of bachata, which I know Jeff probably loves too.
Yeah, but Jeff and everyone know me now. Esther from USAID, the same office mission with Pak Jeff, and I like dangdut Indonesian folk country music.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Gaurav. I am from Mapping Skills from India. I love Sufi.
Hi, I'm Gaurav from Cultus, India. I love soft rock and jazz.
Hello, good morning to everyone. Chandrasekharan from Hope Foundation, India. I like the regional folk music.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Alan Boilachantuladar. I'm from Nepal. In terms of music, whatever is in the mood. So everything goes.
I'm Hannibal Kama. I'm from the Philippine Business for Education. In terms of music, of course, original Filipino music or OPM. Thank you.
Hi, Nalin Singh from Orbit Future Academy. I love listening to myself sing.
Good morning, I'm Dilla, and I am from Te Pukenga, New Zealand's Institute of Skills and Technology, New Zealand's largest educational provider, and I like techno.
Hi, Fawaz here from Sri Lanka from Curve Up, and I love Sri Lankan Baila, which is the folk of Sri Lanka.
Good morning, everybody. Nigel Watson from Amazon Web Services. I don't think there's any music I don't like, but at the moment, the music that I have to listen to is whatever my 14-year-old daughter tells me I should like. So right now, we're listening to a lot of Billie Eilish.
Hi, everyone. You know me, Rani from AWS and IDA. I usually go for pop, 80s pop, but just to check in with my husband's patience, I always listen to very high-pitched Tamil songs.
Well, good morning. I'm Sachin Gopalan, the founder of IEF. My favorite music is fusion music. I like music that is intercultural fusion, usually Asian and Western. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Jeff Cohen from USAID. And in high school, I was both in a band and a disc jockey for many years. And so I do appreciate all kinds of music. Back in the 80s, I listened to a lot of new wave and alternative music. But I am from Detroit. And so the best music on earth is Motown music.
Motown. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, yeah. Does that work? Tejas Vashi from Amazon Web Services. Gosh, like others, I don't know if there's any music I don't like. I grew up with the 80s pop, but I do listen to the 60s and 70s Beatles and other things. And then thanks to my wife, Hindi music, obviously. Bollywood.
Yeah, I'm Arvind Bali. I like different countries' movie songs, basically Polish, Mexican. These are the two countries where I spend a lot of time. But really, by heart, I like Bollywood and Punjabi songs.
Hi, I'm James Gomez from the Asia Center based in Bangkok. Currently listening to Japanese pop, Fuji Kaze, who's doing his tour in Southeast Asia.
Hello everyone, I'm Dhruti Shah. I'm from India and the foundation. I'm the Dean of the Deep Tech Academy. And I'm a Gujarati with Undiyu and Dokla in my blood. And the only thing that works for me is Garba. So I love our folk dance, Garba and music, yeah.
Hi, I'm Arun from Magic Bus India. I like Bollywood music.
Hi, Asif Saad from Learn Tech Pakistan. Grew up with the 80s music, so yeah, obvious. But the latest passion is Sufi music and something called Coke Studio from Pakistan, which is just brilliant and combines Sufi, Ghazal, lots of mix.
Yeah, hi guys, good morning. My name is Mugilan from Malaysia, but please call me Mugi. My favorite music, I would say, is actually rap and hip hop. Yep.
Hey everyone, my name is Pratibha. I'm from Cognizant. I lead their social impact program. And my favorite music is any music that I can dance to. I like making dance reels. So if you know something that from all the music that you like, please tell me.
Hi, I'm Nivedita from Don Bosco Tech, India. I like SPB, Balasubramaniam.
Hi, Vivek Pandit from Generation India. Any contemporary music, Bollywood, anything works.
Hi everyone, I'm Ankur from Generation India, Punjabi at heart, so I go for Punjabi music most of the time.
Hi everyone, good morning. This is Girish here from EduBridge. I love Punjabi and Indian folk music, and like Nigel just said, my daughter's now making me a Swiftian, so Taylor Swift is the new one.
Hi, I am Alisa from XLab Digital Thailand. I love all kind of music, but recently what I have been listening to is the work focus mode playlist.
Yeah. Yes, everybody else? Yes.
So I'm Priya from Software One. Regarding music, it depends on the mood. Now something's also going on in my head. I couldn't just take off from a brother movie, some fast beat moves. Thank you.
Okay. Why don't you join and I think we have
I just want to be an observer. Is it fine?
Doesn't matter. Feel free to join into at the table. Yeah. All right, shall we get started? Anybody else? Did we miss anyone? Okay. All right, let's get started. So, first of all, thank you for sharing. Now I have a good idea of what conversations we can have after the roundtable. especially Coke Studio. That's something I want to talk about. Okay, all right. So we are actually here for a specific reason. Having such a diverse group of people, not only diverse from in the count of coming from so many different countries. I think we have more than 10 or 12 countries presented here. But as I was telling Jeff this morning, this is a room full of the best. People who have successfully implemented skilling programs around the region. And that's why you're here. And I think, congratulations to all of you who won awards last night, which Rani had recognized. That's a testament to the success of the programs that you've been running. And this is something that I mentioned to Jeff during the coffee break, that sometimes the fastest way to be in the market with a program is to scale up a successful program. Because you've been there, done that, learned all your lessons, figured out what works, what doesn't work. And if we can just empower that, fund that, or build collaborations around existing success, it's probably the fastest way to do what we want to do, which is skilling up people, because skilling is a very big function of time. There's no point having skilling done 5 years later. It's too late. You need to skill people today for today's business and for tomorrow's business. And if you're not able to do that in time, you're losing generations of people who don't get that opportunity. So time is of the essence when you talk about skilling. That's one part. The second part is a takeaway from yesterday. I don't remember who said this. I think it was Nalin. We are not actually in the business of skilling. We are in the business of jobs and food on the table. And the way to do that is skilling. Skilling is the outcome of skilling is what we are into, not the skilling. So we should not get caught up in the method and methodology alone, but we should be able to understand whether what we are doing has an impact. And today's discussion is around that, the impact. How do we drive business and societal growth? Because end of the day, if we don't have food on the table, it is the cause of unrest. And unrest in any society, any country, is the source of all the problems that you see right now in many of our countries. We have pockets of disturbances in every country, right? Which means we have not done what we need to do in a inclusive way. So how do we get rid of those inequalities and provide more access? And creating social impact, I think, becomes the number one reason why we are all existing today in the jobs and the businesses that we do, right? As much as we say that we are in the business of education and skilling, end of the day, it is providing food on the table and giving people experiences that allow themselves to grow and contribute to the nation and building of the nation. We've seen many successful countries have done that very well. And we come from countries who aspire to be in the same boat. And I think that's the conversation we should be having today. And the fact that all of you are running successful programs brings us to the tagline of what we want to do today, which is collaborative strategies. So how can we collaborate? I know we did a little bit of it last night. But for social impact skilling, how can we collaborate? What are the various ideas that we can bring to the table? There's a little difference between yesterday and today. Yesterday was an internal workshop of AWS. I think if you remember, Obert and Wendy told you, please do not share what is being discussed. But today you can share. And we follow the Chatham House rules, where if you'd like to share what is discussed here, please do so, but without mentioning who said what. So that's one part. The public dissemination of this information will be done by the Economic Forum in an edited way, so that you are free to talk openly. We are not going to put it in such a way that would create an embarrassment or a compromising situation for you with your employer or in the country that you work with. You can speak freely here. We would edit out, but the outcomes of the discussions here would be put into a document, which we will share with the government, the Indonesian government. But we are happy to share that with your respective government. So we'll give you a copy of that. There will be something like a 10-page recommendations from the outcomes, and you feel free to share that with your respective governments or your respective other stakeholders, so that we can amplify whatever has been discussed today. Okay, so Chatham House rules, that's one thing that's important. More than that, feel free to talk about things openly, because unless you address the elephant in the room or the giraffe in the room, you'll never be able to actually find solutions that we need to. Okay, so with that, I'm going to get started, but I would like to have an opening session by Jeff Cohen, just to get us started, to give us a framework to get started. We'll have many opportunities to change topics during this conversation,
But let's say we have a topic. People can volunteer to say what they would like to say at any point of time, right? So just put your hand up, get the hands on the mic, chip in. It's an open discussion. It's not going around the room in a sequence. It's open discussion. If you have something to say, put your hand up, you can chip in. Approximately 10 to 15 minutes on the topic, and then we change topic. We change topic, then we'll address a next part. I've got a whole list of, the research team is so good, they've given me a big list of topics to cover. I mean, I'll try to cover as much as we can. But the important thing is that if we address this particular topic, then we have a little conversation that goes around it. And to kick it off, I'm going to give the mic to my very good friend, Jeff Cohen. Thank you very much, Jeff.
So when I was 16, I was invited by my Uncle Lenny to go to England, Scotland, and Wales on a trip. 20 days on a bus, off a bus with a bunch of older American senior citizens. When you're 16, the thought of going on a trip with your uncle and a bunch of older Americans to visit England, Scotland, and Wales, you're a little like, really? I got to do this? My Uncle Lenny was also blind, and he had been blind since he was 11 years old. He was one of, and this is a true statement, 3 blind uncles that I had. 2 of them had retinitis pigmentosa, and 1 had diabetes. And anyways, but Uncle Lenny didn't view his blindness as an obstacle, but rather just part of who he was. And he had sight when he was a kid and lost his sight when he was 11, but he was successful. He ended up in his career being a legal aid, meaning he became what's called an assistant to a lawyer, but he didn't work in a law firm. He worked for the government, and he provided free legal assistance to people that needed help using phone lines. He also did so in Spanish. Now, Uncle Lenny is an American Jew from the ghetto, the Jewish ghetto of New York, but over time taught himself to speak Spanish and provided assistance to those in need in the city of New York. He took the subway every day to work. He didn't use a dog, he used a cane, but he found his way through the city of New York using the subway and providing assistance to those in need. For me, he was my uncle, and he's the guy that showed me how you can see the world, right? He had asked me to go to England, Scotland, and Wales to be his eyes. And he needed to go see the crown jewels. You can imagine, how do you describe the crown jewels to a blind man when you're 16? Anyway, it was the first time I got a passport. It was the first time I went overseas, and I've spent my entire life going around the world. All thanks to Uncle Lenny. The reason why I tell this story is that it was moments in his life where people, and he using his own initiative, found the upskilling moments that allowed him to have a life of service that provided assistance to others in the city of New York, right? He learned Braille through a program that taught him Braille. He learned Spanish through a program that taught him Spanish. He learned how to be a paralegal through a program that taught him how to be a paralegal. And he turned all of those moments of upskilling into being a positive force for others in the city of New York. And I think one of the challenges as we look at the topic today is, the measure of society is how do you get to the last mile? How do you get to the most marginalized? How do you get to the most difficult to reach? How do you get to those who have more challenges than your average citizen to achieve what they really have potential to achieve but are being undiscovered? And I think that we have great opportunities in places like Indonesia, where you have 278 million people, in an economy growing at 5%, with the government's goal to grow at 8%, there are great opportunities to move this country forward. And I encourage all of our partners like Orbit and AWS and Talenta and the others that we work with, Arizona State, to find ways to upskill. And there are easy ways to do that. You go to a university, you work at a BALCA, a vocational school, You identify youth groups like our friend from Philippines is doing. You know, there are great ways to do that. And I think, but I would like to challenge all of you who are experts at the field of upskilling to spend a little time and resources on that last mile group of folks who have more challenges. Because as a country grows, you'll find that if you continue to leave the easy to leave behind, we're missing an opportunity to engage a population that I think has a lot to offer. A few weeks ago, USAID and Arizona State and the American Chamber of Commerce hosted a big career fair and internship fair, and we made sure to make it as inclusive as possible and brought together some of the organizations that support people with disabilities. And one of the things that we heard from them in the question and answer session was, we're older than everybody else here because it took us longer to get to the place where we could even begin to engage on internships or careers, where most of the young folks here coming out of school are 22. We're coming out of college at 29. So we're not only disadvantaged because we have sight issues or hearing issues or mobility issues, but we're also now older part of the workforce. And so I think it's important for us to make sure that we're always considering, and this is why USAID in all of our grants, contracts, and cooperative agreements, we put in that we must be inclusive of gender considerations. We must be inclusive of people with disabilities. We want our partners to spend U.S. taxpayer dollars on these important populations. And we do, as a U.S. government, all the time. My Uncle Lenny was a beneficiary of this, and this was, my goodness, in the 40s and 50s that he was a beneficiary of or 60s of these types of programs. I'm going to close out in just a second. I want to say that Indonesia is going through a transition, but it's not transitioning away from its positive economic growth path. And I think that the next stage of development, if the government wants to achieve Indonesia Emas, which is Golden Indonesia by 2045, and a growth rate that exceeds where it is now, part of that is to be more inclusive, is to find ways to bring more people to the table to experience growth. Upskilling in Indonesia is not about Jakarta. It's about everywhere else. I just went to Papua. Papua is the far eastern side of Indonesia. Recently, the government of Indonesia went from having 2 provinces, dividing it up into 6, and is now standing up 4 brand new provincial governments and a series of new what they call district governments. But there isn't capacity at any of those places, and so they have to move it around or they have to build it. It's an example of out there in the hinterlands beyond Jakarta, beyond the big cities, where upskilling is important because every single one of those provincial governments needs to be connected back to Jakarta in order to receive their financial transfers and to report back on progress. Every single one of the hospitals out there, every single one of the clinics, every single one of the schools needs to have the upskilled capacity to engage in the modern IT environment, needs to understand how AI could be beneficial, needs to understand what AI is. And when you get out to the farthest reaches of wherever country you're from, those places are just as deserving of upskilling as the ones nearby in the big city. And honestly, there's a lot of innovation that can happen out there in the farthest reaches. So whether it's people with disabilities or marginalized communities because of ethnicity, religion, or lifestyle choices, or folks that are just further afield, we need to make sure that we're reaching out beyond the easy-to-reach populations and into those areas where upskilling is also important. Now, I know from a USAID perspective, we want numbers. We want to get to 60,000 learners through AWS's program with Talenta. We want to get to 1,300 learners through the program with Orbit and Padu. But we also want to make sure that we're spending resources to get further afield. We're celebrating 75 years of partnership here in Indonesia, U.S. government and the government of Indonesia. And I think that we've done a great job so far, and we look forward to continuing that partnership across the country into those far-to-reach places. And I do want to echo the last thing here that Sachin and Nalan and others say is it really is about jobs, right? You don't train people just to train them. There is benefit to that, but you definitely want to train people to get jobs. And while it's the technical side, it's also the soft skill side. And I think that in a country like Indonesia that has education system that is evolving, soft skills are critically important and need to be something that's part of the mix. But I'll just stop there and thank you for allowing me a chance to speak. My apologies if it was a bit off topic, but
spot on actually.
Thanks.
So thank you, Jeff. You touched upon some very interesting points, and I know a lot of people here might want to react to that or probably ask a question to that. So why don't we have a little bit of a Q&A with Jeff to take off on the topics that he has tabled. Anybody would like to ask a question here? Is there anyone here in the room would like to comment maybe? Yeah, please. Wait. If you can speak into the mic because we're recording this, yeah.
I would like to ask, how can we contribute remotely to the development of the kids here in Indonesia? What are the different ways we can contribute? We are ready to do that, at least from my end, even if it's remotely. Just let us know if there is any way we can contribute.
I would say that Indonesian youth specifically and Indonesians writ large are really savvy in the digital space. I don't know the numbers, but I would imagine that but a large percentage of Indonesians get their information through their phones, through YouTube, through TikTok, through Instagram, and it's probably increasing as regular media decreases. And I think the key is to find the organizations locally that are connected to large groups of young people who are looking for upskilling opportunities and plugging into those local networks, whether it's one school or one university or a network of them. Here in Indonesia, there are large networks of religious-based organizations that do health, they do education, they have universities like Muhammadiyah or NU, and I think that's how you get into having an impact is through these organization structures that bring together large quantities of people. I don't know specifically what you're targeting, but for example, Muhammadiyah and NU have large university networks. So if you plug into one, then they can scale it across more than just that one university. Those would be kind of my areas of advice.
Sure, thank you.
Lovely, and I love the inspiration that you've been a vision to approach that you have the pain point and all of it. So my comment plus question is about the grassroots impact on AI and bringing the technology to the people who doesn't have access to. In some of our intervention, that what we really understood is the state level, infrastructure level, and the access in nature plays a major role. And I think we do whatever we can do. So very specific example is we went to some of the women entrepreneurs and we told them, how do you use AI video tutorial, CapCut, and few other TikTok tools to promote your businesses online, because the content they produced was not up to the mark and they didn't have budgets. So we did a AI literacy program for them. And at a point what we understood is we started getting them, calling them, they started calling us saying, hey, you know what? It's taking a lot of internet bandwidth, right? And that's the point it triggered sometime. Such initiatives we do with a lot of good intentions, and we carefully choose tools that which doesn't even have subscription, or at least as a strategy of freemium to premium. You get started with free, and then when really it works for you and benefits your business or economic opportunity, you pay for it. But we also understand these infrastructure limitations about sometime they really don't know how much of internet it'll take. And the devices sometimes, the technology access and all of it. So on such situations, as an entrepreneurial, I always tell them, earn this, put this into the cost. But also for an enabling option, how do you see such challenges which are way beyond your limitations of training and innovation and creative approach of training, such state level or such infrastructure level interventions? How do you see that, or probably what sort of outcomes that you have seen? Just sharing your thoughts.
So thank you. I am technically challenged in lots of ways. But what I can tell you from our experience here in Indonesia is partnership is a key way that you can overcome some of those challenges. And I'll talk about, we have a program with Amazon called Talenta that is working at a number of universities that's upskilling young people at university level to be conversant and functional and, good at AWS's cloud computing infrastructure and architecture. But also part of that is an entrepreneurship portfolio whereby there's a competition and the winners get free access to the backbone. And again, I'm not technical, so I'm probably getting all this nomenclature wrong. But they get access to utilize Amazon services for free, whatever that is. I would venture to say that for those women who are starting out using AI and are discovering some benefit and need some more support, that might be an opportunity to work with the AI provider company or one of the local IP networks or some other corporate social responsibility type entity to say, listen, we've got this group of women that have seen success, and you need to filter that. It can't be free for everybody immediately. You have to have drive and ambition and initiative to get rewarded, right? It needs to be merit-based. So how could you provide some sort of, listen, for 6 months or a year, we've seen success, we want to keep you going in that right direction. It could either be a free thing or a loan thing, some sort of subsidized way that they could get the access to the tools and infrastructure they need, right? I don't know, that's just an idea. It's something that we've done with Amazon that's been successful.
Anybody else would like to jump into that conversation? So how do you see this? Do you guys see this as a moral dilemma of promoting somebody's product? We have somebody? Sorry. Yes. Just can we have the mic? Yes.
I just wanted to ask, how do you see the partnership between the companies and educational institute works in accelerating youth's, upskilling in Indonesia?
So listen, I think for a long time the development operation, the international development industry, right, and local governments, everybody, there seemed to be this strange need to separate church and state, right, government and business, and so partnerships were rare. I think we've all learned, and this is a trite expression that everybody says, if you want to go fast, you go alone, you want to go far, you go together. There's truth in all of those trite expressions. You can't honestly build a program at a university or at a high school or at a vocational school in a vacuum without knowing where people are going to get hired. And, my experience as a young person, you would have a high school, you'd have a counselor that would help you engage in university, right? Where were you going to go to school? We're going to counsel you on where to go. We're going to bring in the schools. They're going to talk to you, and then you're going to get into a school. And then at university, you had a group that would help you get a job, and they would come in and do interviews. But that piece that was missing in my brain was, did the industry actually help design the curriculum that's being taught at those universities? And the answer was no, because you had academics, and I mean academics at PhD level types, all the way to that vocational school type, who thought they knew better, right? There is this ivory tower vision of academia versus work versus industry, and it was a mistake, in my opinion. And we kind of let it perpetuate for years. And then we started to realize if you're going to get people jobs, there needs to be more targeted engagement. And that goes across it can't just be the university, it has to be the vocational school, it has to be the private upskilling company that's, you're paying for a job at the end of it. All those things. I think to me that's the key, is that the partnerships have to exist between educational institutions, universities, local government, because they're off-takers too. I applaud, and I know it's because it's our partner, but Arizona State University, if you really look at its last 30 years of history, has done a better job than most others. When I was in high school, Arizona State was considered a bad university. It was where you went if you didn't have a chance to go anywhere else. Now, it's considered an exceptional university, and everybody gets in, right? It has this interesting model, but most importantly, it's tied itself to the local economy, to the local government, and to industry, and to the U.S. government to provide these links to the job market, these links to research. It's not the only one doing it, but I think to answer your question in a long-winded way is there has to be partnership. And here in Indonesia, we're trying to do that not just through our program with Arizona State, but also through our PADU and our Talenta programs and everything we do. I'll give you an example. We don't train coffee farmers without having an off-taker, right? We don't train cacao farmers without having somebody that's making chocolate who's involved in the decisions that that farmer is making. It's just the right way to partner is you have to have all aspects of things together, local government, national government, working in concert to really have sustainable, impactful success.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Actually, I wanted to respond to Sachin what you said about the product dilemma on, are you promoting certain products and applications? And I think, what we've been guided by is the fundamental purpose of why we're doing that. And we're pretty laser sharp on the skilling initiatives will have to lead to economic potential. And when that is the purpose, then it kind of answers the question. So I'll give you an example to illustrate what I mean. So we were running a series of digital literacy workshops for women to support their job productivity and help them get better jobs, women from disadvantaged communities. So we realized that the gap that existed was especially on two specific product lines. One is the Microsoft Suite, the Office productivity tools, as well as Google Google Workspace solutions. So we looked at both of them without, we're not really promoting them, but it's really required to supercharge their career. On the other hand, now that we're doing a lot of skills along generative AI, so many Gen AI solutions, right? So, but where does the gap lie in terms of Gen AI skills? It's not really about ChatGPT or Meta AI, Gemini, any of them, but really how do you prompt better? How do you structure a prompt better so that when you put in a prompt, you get what you want? And that makes a huge difference. So we're not guided by the products, but we are really guided by, just helping the women and some of the other communities structure their prompts better.
Okay, thank you. Actually, this is an important point, and I want to go around the room asking people, have you faced this issue about non-profit mentality, where non-profits or foundations who actually fund programs tell you that you can't be using their money to benefit a corporate or a company or a product? Have you all faced that? Because we do face that in some of the people that we talk to for funding. They become very reluctant if they say that this is going to go towards for-profit outcome. And many a good program gets sacrificed because of this mentality. And I think it's our job to be able to convince people that if it's good for business, then it's good for everyone. So I would like some input on that from all of you, or maybe share some experience you have, or have you, if you have not faced that problem, how did you overcome it? Because I do know 10 years ago, that was the general mentality of non-profits cannot be doing anything that helps people make a profit. Yes? Okay, start maybe with Arvind, then we'll come to Tejas and Rani, and then we'll go around the room. Yes.
Yeah, so in India, we have got this social CSR, corporate social responsibility. That is the government has mandated, like any profitable organization, like 2% of their profit, they have to put back into social programs. And expectation of those programs are that should not become like plowback, that money back to your own benefits. So I think it's basically starts from there. But then there are definitely ways, there are definitely areas, where one can definitely do. Like for example, if you are going to colleges and final year students, if you are skilling them, making them job ready, and then out of that some of those get employed in your own organization, then there's nothing wrong in that. But I think it basically starts from the fact that most of the times organization doesn't want to be seen somebody like who is using CSR funds for their own benefit. So I think maybe it comes from there.
And that's a good point. Yeah. Maybe Tejas first. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to be really blunt about this. I'm sure we're going to have a good debate around this, but from my perspective, look, nothing is free. And so when you start saying, hey, you can't use certain funds and nonprofits cannot make any revenue, what you start doing is you go down the slippery slope, right? Because in order to break even, which is what a nonprofit needs to do to stay sustainable, otherwise, they get to the point where, they're non-existent. Well, then they start cutting corners. For those of you that deliver, which is pretty much everybody in this room, technical skills, you start cutting corners on the quality of the instructors. When you get far enough down that path where you've cut enough corners, then the question is, what value are you giving back, right? And so, again, in the corporate world, if it's 50, 60, 70, 80% margins, that's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is enough to sustain, to continue to invest in these programs. I think that's a very fair discussion to have, right? Even for CSR and not-profit activities, right?
Good
Because
point.
it's talking about sustainability.
Yeah. Very good point. Pass the mic to the gentleman here. Then we'll come back here.
No, I think this is a very good question, and we debate a lot about this in India. My own experience is that when you look from the corporates, there is a CSR law, so it makes us much more easy to operate in India, social programs. So I have seen that a corporate does not mind giving the funds under CSR to a for-profit or a non-profit, as long as the program is executed as per the CSR law. And I think this is why. A good example is EduBridge. They are for-profit. So the donors whom they fund, they get money from, we also get. So no live example better than that. The second one is there are a lot of non-profits who also have a for-profit arm. Now, as long as you don't do related party transaction, it's fine, and there are good examples where both cooperate. The third one is, I think the market in India as well as social programs is concerned is been maturing over the last 10 years. And today a lot of large donors say that I am going to fund you large projects only if you have a good corpus. Because one of the things when you have a good corpus is that if your funding goes away, if I am not able to fund you or some other large funder exits, so you shouldn't collapse. So one of the criteria in the due diligence is how good is your corpus is. Now that would mean, and I'm just talking to Tejas, is that there is a big battle in India saying how much should I give for the back-end cost in a non-profit. Now this is a battle all across the world. I think a mature market say that the non-profits also have a back-end to cover, and that supports the efficiency of the program, and you must put some money in the corpus. So I think as the markets mature and organizations have people who come in from social sector or from social sector education, they understand these things. And we've seen this transformation happening in India.
Very good point. I think, yes. Let's go to this side first, and then we'll bring the mic out there.
But you are absolutely right. There is no program anyone should do where you bleed, because it is not sustainable.
That's right.
So stupid.
Absolutely.
Or which are not impactful. You get your funding for it.
Correct. So there's a mentality change that needs to be institutionalized. We have people on the cusp of this kind of thinking, but we still have a lot of people who believe in non-profits should not fund for-profit initiatives, and that's a fact. So I think one of the outcomes that we would like probably in today's discussion is to make a strong case for why people should change that mentality, and maybe that's a start of something more impactful. Yes, Rani, over to you.
I was going to say to your question about have we seen these challenges, people don't want to be vendor bias, right? But I will tell you many, many times in the last 3 years of doing AWS Restart, that question has come up from funders, whether NGOs, foundations, or governments. And I think there is a lot of education that needs to be made. If we take AWS Restart as an example, only 50% of the whole 450-hour program is on AWS services. And that also is intentionally because we need to give them real-life examples, certify them to give them a stepping stone to get to the next level of choice of training and skills that they want to get, because it's an entry-level job. It does take a long time to actually talk about, because the other 50%, whether it's AWS, Microsoft, Google, any player, needs that knowledge to perform well in the cloud space. So there's a lot of education that needs to be done, and that's whenever we tackle that and say, the reason, yes, it's not for free. Yes, we are trying to build future workforce. And yes, because we are investing millions and millions of dollars in the countries, we also need to provide the students, the graduates, with the right skill sets, applicable skill sets, for them to start that entry-level journey. It takes a while to actually educate them that this is a must. They cannot do a program of cloud skills without one of the players represented. If not, they don't have real-life skills.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to put some inputs on the sustainability part. We've been trying to form a project with USAID Nepal on trade competitiveness. And the big challenge has always been saying if a funder funds a training project, the training would only go so far as the funds are available. After which, how does it become sustainable? Has been the big question that has been. So they came up with a counter proposal saying, would it be possible for USAID to bring some of the financial institutions to be able to provide microloans to the learners to be able to fund the training, and then once the jobs are gotten, they would pay back for the training component. But that model did not work with us because we are providing the training free, and we cannot charge the learners to make this project sustainable. So the big question around the whole project in terms of restart is to see how do we make this sustainable? Even with the funder's support or the government support, it will only last so far till the funding is available. After which, then we have to look for the next funder and then the next funder, and at some point, the funding will run out. So making sure that the beneficiary, who is the learner, gets the training free is a very noble way of getting it done. But at the same time, it doesn't seem to be sustainable for eternity. The funds will run out, and I think that's a challenge of how do we work this around to make sure that the sustainability component is there. So.
Actually, I was going to ask this, but I think Mugi over there, I'm going to put you on the spot, man. You've got to answer that one. The sustainability with employer engagement.
Thank you, Doctor. So basically, from my experience, right, two things, right? If we are doing a CSR or a project, it depends on the target market and what are we trying to achieve. Is it a short-term goal or a long-term goal? I can share my experience in Malaysia. I think, like I shared yesterday, a lot of lacking of digital skills in Malaysia. And for us to actually solve that problem, it has to be a long-term plan, right? Government gives some sort of injections here and there based on the general mood of what the government is saying in that year, right? Maybe this year they skill for the TVAT people, maybe next year is for the B40s. But how do we make it sustainable? Just to share with you, like for 2021, we had a lot of B40s that were sponsored, but in 2022, that actually reduced. But we still had a lot of B40 students. B40 means below the 40% poverty line in Malaysia. Still a lot apply to us. Well, we don't want to say no, although we have no funding. How do we make it sustainable? In my idea, we work with different government agencies as whenever they come with whatever initiatives they have, At the same time, you have to integrate with the industry because at the end of the day, you have to do placements, right? To make it sustainable, we got to get the industry involved in the long-term talent pipelines. This is how I look at Restart, and I position it such where we tailor make it for specific industries. We go and engage the associations, the players in the industry, and the ministry involved. We get them in the same table, get them to speak, and that's how I plan to make it sustainable. Yeah.
Jeff, you wanted to add something here.
Yeah, I would say the industry is key because they're hiring the skilled labor, and you sometimes if you've got a company as big as AWS that's going to need to outfit a center, a data center, that's one thing. But there are a lot of off takers. How do you group them together to say, listen, we can upskill your next generation labor force, but you need to pay us to do that, and we can guarantee you a pipeline of 3 a month or 3 a year. Again, it's not so easy to do, but once you create those linkages, then perhaps it might be successful. Free is difficult, right? Everybody needs to get paid for what they're providing in some way, shape, or form. But I think the key is if you can tie it to the job, then maybe it's the off-taker that can afford to pay for it. Because if you don't do the upskilling for them, they have to do it themselves, right? And on-the-job training for certain skill sets are not easy.
I think I'll rephrase that a bit. Okay, I'm going to come back to you. Okay, let's go around the room. Maybe Nalin and then Esther. Yeah.
Because I'm just going to tack on what Jeff said about when we help our government partners who are running the vocational training centers, our partner for PRADU, what we tell them is that we are trying to find what we call a shared interest between government and the industry or the private sector. So we will not come to the industry and say we don't give something to them. So we have been supporting them in understanding what is your value proposition of the training center that you bring in to the private sector. And because all this time so far we haven't been seeing successful model in other like higher education or vocational schools, but BLK, the training center, is now trying to brand or to show their competitive advantage in reaching out to the population. That's what they bring. They can also support them in any way that the private sector cannot support. But on the other hand, what we are telling the private sector, and we help the BLK to say so, is we're supporting your costs or like operations, because by having you retaining or getting the right skilled people or employees, you will be like sustainably more cost efficient in the long run of your operation, because you will avoid dropouts. You'll have retention that will help you at the end eventually be more efficient in operation. So having that shared interest, but also showing how a government center or non-profit has a value that they bring into the industry, and that's what we're helping our partner.
Great point, Esther. Nalin, you want to go this side? You got a mic. Yeah, go ahead.
So thanks for bringing this. This is a topic very, very close to my heart. I started my organization 14 years back. At that time, there was no CSR law in India. And I started purely with the heart in the right place to do this work. And I felt to do in a not-for-profit would mean attracting better talent, attracting probably more capital, probably doing a more efficient and a more effective job of it. But as the CSR law came into being, and the CSR law in India actually says not to work with a for-profit and to work with an ATG or a not-for-profit arm. That's actually what the Act says. But of course, like Arun also mentioned, there are several organizations who do work with organizations like us for profit also in the skilling space. And the biggest point that I always had to make all of these years is, if I am getting paid the same amount as an NGO, then I can be efficient enough to create a margin for myself and do a good enough, if not a better job, then why not? Then what's the challenge? If I say you pay me more for my margins versus what you pay a not-for-profit, I can totally understand you don't want to pay more. But if you are paying the same amount and I can be more efficient and I can derive my profits out of that, how does that hurt anybody? It just makes it more sustainable. It probably makes it more scalable. It probably ends up attracting better quality talent to deliver a higher quality outcome, which is what the entire initiative actually is about. So that's what, and it's a very, very close to my heart kind of topic. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah. I'd actually like to amplify this to the outside world so that we can have some kind of an impact in the way people think about this issue. Yeah. So, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for it. This is James from Asia Center based in Bangkok. I wanted to sort of draw attention to North Thailand and the diaspora from Myanmar. So if you want to provide service, skills, and training from them, it's very difficult because it's a very politically sensitive area for corporates to come and support, right? Because when they come over, the areas they want to work on immediately is like maybe tourism, hospitality, setting up small shops, small eateries, and all of that. So in these kinds of skilling or activity-based, corporates really, don't want to be part of it. So in order for us to support the work there, we do have to lean on development aid sectors to give us a leg up. So I wanted to also sort of bring in those kind of contexts that we are facing on the ground, especially in northern Thailand, because the volume of displaced people from Myanmar is very, very high. Many of them young because of the conscription law as well. So I just wanted to sort of throw that into the table for consideration.
Good point. Nalin, please.
Just a couple of points. One specifically to this topic and second to a larger issue that you raised. Firstly, Jeff, Orbit is, as we speak, running programs from Aceh to Papua, right across all 38 provinces. Which is the biggest or largest so-called non-profit in the world? The government. The governments are supposed to be non-profit. I go to universities and they say that we are non-profit, but I say you are not for profit. That doesn't mean you are for loss. The biggest university, Harvard, has a $50.7 billion corpus and makes $3 billion a year in profit. So this whole thinking is warped. This non-profit business leads to bureaucratic cholesterol in their organizations. It's full of dead people who are cut off from reality. They don't have the top talent, or they have retired people running it. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to handle money. Not all, but most of them. This whole thing doesn't work. Even the largest non-profit, the government works with for-profit people and taxes all of us for its money. That's one point that I wanted to make. The other was a larger issue of why is every government talking about skilling? It's something that you raised yesterday. Everybody speaks of skilling because of the so-called demographic dividend. So everybody in this room who's above 45, thank you very much for having children. You should be proud. We contributed to the demographic dividend. Everybody else should be worshipping us, all the young people. Okay, it's us. We are the heroes of the demographic dividend story. All the governments are talking about skilling because the demographic dividend is turning into a demographic nightmare. Having a person not skilled, not educated, and hence not employed is understandable to that person. I'm not skilled, I'm unemployed. Then you go around giving them skilling and saying, now you're still unemployed. Then they revolt. And you are seeing that across the world. In our region, in Indonesia, a month ago, the parliament was stormed. Where are all these young people coming from on the streets? We've had Sri Lanka, we've had Pakistan, we've had Bangladesh recently. The governments are scared of the demographic nightmare. Hence, they're talking skilling. Politicians don't work out of national interest, they work out of self-interest. Right now, they're trying to protect themselves from the masses, that NEET. 116 million people in India, as per the government statistic, who are neither in employment, nor in agriculture, nor in education. They're just sitting there to be ignited and sparked. That's the problem. And this profit, non-profit issue will go away. Final point, thanks to USAID through their agency DAI in Burma, we are doing a restart program. So much was spoken about how will we get 75 learners to do cloud computing in Burma when the fighting has reached the city. All the young people are conscripted, like in Thailand, northern Thailand, etc. How will we get 75 learners? They spent so much time talking about it. 4 months just talking about where will we get 75 people. This morning, the registrations opened only 72 hours ago. I have 750 applications. 90% are women. 90% because the men are in the army. So 90% are women. So a lot of this intellectual tourism that non-profit people do sitting in their offices is pretty useless when it comes to the real world.
Good point. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Nalin. I think this basically opens a wider lens, what you have said. And I guess from an economic forum perspective, it's absolutely the right lens to look at things from. I think you talked about the demographic dividend. We are probably all here beneficiaries of the lottery of DNAs, right? So how we were born and how we exist today is very, very different from the realities of the world. And when you talk about creating impact to the poorest and the bottom of the pyramid, where technology is not a factor. I mean, you mentioned, let me share a statistic with you about my own country, where there's 25 million kids out of school. And you Google every other country here, I think India probably has a smaller number, but there are still people who are not being able to get into elementary school. And we're talking AI and, whatever. So basically, technology then becomes even more of a divider, right? Because that's what you're doing. You're moving ahead. A part of of humanity is moving ahead, and the rest is being left behind. They were behind before. They're going to be left behind even further. Somebody raised the issue of bandwidth. We try and I'm involved with something. We're trying to, as a non-profit, put out-of-school children into schools. Just pure enrollment. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. It's a cultural nightmare. It's a financial nightmare. But do we want to give up? No. And is there a role for the state? Obviously is. There is a huge role for the private sector. And I think the challenge for technology people and whoever is involved with this in this area is really try to find solutions at the bottom of the pyramid. I think that's where the eventual solution will come from for a longer term and sustainable basis. Because if you don't address that market, you're not really solving the problem.
Anybody else? Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to share, I'm from the Philippines, and I'd like to share, at least from our perspective as a non-profit organization, but really working at the intersection of private sector participation as well in education and training. We are operating really on the basic mantra that business is good for development and development is good for business. So how do we actually do it is, we actually ask the same questions as per what Sir Jeff mentioned earlier about, let's say, why is it that donors' money is actually used, let's say, for private sector improvement of private sector workforce? But in that case, it's really working on like showing a proof of concept. Because when you work with the private sector, you need to make a very good business case, right? You need to make that justification that the model works. And it's really by showing first or doing a pilot that the model works, and then eventually they will adopt the model. So, and that line, I think, is becoming more and more blurred. There's really no more line between, or like a distinction between that, such that in our experience of working with big businesses and for-profit organizations in the Philippines, the concept of non-compete becomes more and more irrelevant and obsolete. Just before coming here in Jakarta, we launched we recently graduated for a food and beverage training program that serves out-of-school youth, but for McDonald's, which is the largest fast food chain also in the Philippines and of course globally, but with their competitor, which is Jollibee, KFC, Burger King. The same thing with our digital skills training that we serve, let's say, the big banks of Citibank, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan. Because again, bottom line there is both of them, all of these private sector companies, they share the same workforce problem. Lack of talent, low skills. So if we provide them, let's say, solutions that actually cut across, let's say, their concerns and issues, and build a very good business case for that, then actually we contribute to further blurring the line of what is for-profit, non-profit, what is for development, and what is for business. And by the end of the day, everybody wins. Thank you.
Okay, good. Last one here. We'll try. Okay, go ahead, please. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Melissa from Thailand. I would like to share how we work in Thailand right now. To admit that we are working really hard to get government fundings. So we have other financial support resources. One of the main model is that we charge companies for the placement fee. And well, thank you to AWS Thailand. They like endorse us a lot into their clients. So their clients are like struggling finding the talent, so they come up to us and we offer the value that they want. So we match and then we actually charge them. I think this is the new way of the new way of hiring. They don't see getting only the placement value, but they can see the social values that they will get too. And also we are trying to work out with some governments because it's very hard for us to get like funding. So we are trying to work with some government agencies. How can they support us, or probably they can launch policies for subsidizing the employers for new hiring. So they can help encourage or even endorse the employers to hire the learners from us. Yes, so I truly believe as Gage that we cannot be non-profits because financial is a very big thing to keep things going. So we are moving towards more like social enterprise or social business more. Yes.
Okay. Last one here, yes.
Very quickly, if I don't answer this question, it will be very challenging to myself because we were asked several times to can we become a non-for-profit, right? Be a foundation. So I think most of the answers that I've given is about profitability and sustainability and governance and transparency. Where this is most importance of non-governmental organization has a governance and transparency for the approach and more credible approach of the funds which are allocated and spent. So very quick case study that we want to bring is we were put into a spot like that. Right, so our take was like, okay, you want to do a small, medium and empowerment and entrepreneurial effort, and you don't want it to go for a for-profit. So that ideologically there is a conflict, right? Number one. And what we said, we took a risk. Don't pay us until we get you the model done. But if we get the model done right, we're going to continue to work with you so that you can also accommodate the changes in your governance protocol. I think we probably as for-profit and entrepreneurial approach, we need to respect the model of governance and transparency and as what the impact is. So the quick model we did is they wanted to empower a small, medium enterprises to go digital, and they don't want to invest in any other resources. We said, give them social media companies and campaigns, so they will boost, they will learn and do. They said no, right? Because how can we pay for a social media company or a campaign company? You know what we did? We said, okay, let's train that for the youth in that particular smaller town. Let's get the youth to work for them, right? And we said, okay, we got some of the experts, train the youth and deploy the youth at the small medium enterprise company to help them. And that model worked. And we are very happy. Today, the whole model has become as one of the successful e-commerce platform in Sri Lanka called Made by Her. Right, that is positioning only women entrepreneurs. And the second generation within their house is trained for the digital media and all of it. But if the model has not worked, we would have lost a couple of grants of dollars that we would have costed us. But in the entrepreneurial effort, we were able to do. So again, I really agree with the point of if the profitability company can make it more efficient, and approachable. But the governance layer also comes with a cost. The credibility, governance, audit on you, all also comes with a cost. So I think it's very important to meet the middle line to give the project a sustainable approach. And we recently adopted policy is any projects that we develop for any donor given organization, we give the IP and the brand of the program to them so that they can run it by themselves, or even they can run it future with someone else, and we end the program with a TOT so they can carry it. So these are for-profit companies, the measures that we can take to support the not-for-profit governance protocol.
Yeah. So it's a good point. They make you jump through a lot of hoops, right? Even though it's a noble cause that everybody is believing in. Okay. So, I'm just going to probably wrap up this part of the conversation here. Yes, I like what Jeff said about, engaging the off-taker, because I think engaging the off-taker is the key here. However, there are governance issues, and I think issues about conflict of interest, or misuse of funds, etc., that come in, which is the reason why so many hoops are there for us to jump through, right? However, there is this whole, I want to ask a monkey in the room kind of a question, right? It's a bit mischievous, but we do have an organization here like AWS. How does AWS think of this internally? Because while you say that you should not use your left pocket to line your right pocket, right, which is the CSR side here and the business side is on the other side, actually what is wrong if a lot of people, you're all in the Restart program, right? What is wrong if everybody gets trained in Restart and then are unleashed into the market so that they would have a preference to use Amazon products? What's wrong with that? I would say that's really the way you engage an off-taker, right? There should be a purpose behind why a training is being done. However, for various governance reasons, you do keep it separate. So would you like to react to that? Maybe I know Nigel and Tejas. What is the difficulty in convincing top management to make this actually strategic rather than seen as a CSR program?
Let me make sure this is working.
Yeah.
I don't think it is a problem. I've worked in partnerships for most of my professional career, and one of the things that's essential to any partnership is that both partners or all parties need to feel that what they're investing in is sustainable and is producing value, right? Because if that's not the case, then it's not a proper partnership. If you're bleeding, then you are unable to sustain that. So the way that in most of the businesses that I've been involved in Amazon, the way that we think about investment is that it's an investment for growth, right? So when the partner organization in Amazon invests, resources, credits, or even cash in a partner arrangement, there is an assumption that the partner will economically grow their business as part of growing the consumption of AWS. It's built into the model. So most of the investments we make are actually tied to that growth. We do not expect that our partners will do things out of the charity or out of charity or the love of their heart. Now, the work that you do as collaborating organizations actually adds another layer of value because of the CSR aspects of what you do, which actually extend the value of those investments above and beyond what we'd normally see from a regular commercial investment. So from my perspective, I don't think that that's at all the problem when partners are actually taking the investments that we make and they're turning those into economic growth. The other part of this, of course, is that when you grow as partners, we grow the platform. When the platform grows, we grow as an organization. So this is a really clean way for us to align the investments that we make not only commercially, but also into one of our leadership principles is success and scale brings broad responsibilities. That includes not just growing the business, but uplifted the community. In a market like Indonesia or the Philippines or India or Vietnam or Thailand, how do we make use of the platform we have to bring economic benefits, not just to the regular suspects at the enterprise end of the spectrum, but to an SMB in a far-flung corner of Indonesia or Papua, right? So for me, I don't see any conflict at all. Tejas I think would probably disagree with me, but I'll hand over to him to comment as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna disagree with everything he just said.
Great.
Ditto, right? So, a couple things we talked about yesterday, which is around the value proposition, and I think we really need to look at the entire value chain and understand what's the value to the employers, what's the value to the government, What's the value to each of us as AWS, you as our collaborating organizations? If we get that equation right, we will have sustainability. And so one of the things that I'm a big proponent of is to make sure that we all understand that business and economic sustainability and social impact are not mutually exclusive. They go hand in hand, right? Because I said a few minutes ago, right? If you're just focused on nonprofits and, hey, just cutting corners, you're going to lose the quality of the instructors, quality of your program managers, quality of how the program is run, where it's run, how quickly you can scale, how quickly you can make an impact. So you have to look at all sides. And it's funny that he actually mentioned the leadership principle. So I think I mentioned this yesterday. So we had 14 leadership principles at Amazon. And we hold each other accountable and our peers within the company accountable. And our partner organizations hold our partners and, in our case, our ecosystems accountable to the same level of thinking. And so 2 years ago, we added 2 new ones. And one of them, as Nigel pointed out, was success and scale bring broad responsibility. And I actually pulled that up specifically when you asked that question, because I wanted to read that excerpt so that you understand where we're coming from. So success and scale bring broad responsibility. We started in a garage, but we're not there anymore. We are big, we impact the world, and we are far from perfect. But we must be humble and thoughtful about even the secondary effects of our actions. Our local communities, our planet, and future generations need us to be better every day. We must begin each day with a determination to make better, do better, and be better for our customers, our employees, our partners, and the world at large. And we must end every day knowing that we can do even better tomorrow. Leaders create more than they consume and always leave things better than how they found them. So this is the message from Andy Jassy, well, actually, even before that, starting with Jeff, all the way down through the company, right? And so this is ingrained in our thinking, that if we don't have a value proposition, I used to have a slide that I think my team said stop presenting that same slide, but it said win, 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 right? We're creating a win for these individuals, a win for our customers and partners, and a win for the communities in which we serve. And when I say we, I mean collectively with the program and our collaborating organizations. If we can get that equation right, this becomes sustainable.
Yes, and thank you actually for reading the definition, because it wasn't in my head, but it's definitely something that we feel as an organizational principle. It guides the way that we think about how we invest in in our partners and actually in our customers and the community as a whole. The other thing that I wanted to kind of call out, which is somewhat related to the previous discussion, was the value creation that you do needs to be recognized, right? So in terms of, Fawaz was saying before about the governance piece from government, the governance piece from governments that are investing, from the agencies that are investing, that is the way that they recognize the value that you're creating from a government investment perspective. The way I think that the offloading organizations, the employers should think about this is they need to recognize the value you create in generating the talent pipeline, particularly the diverse talent pipeline you create. And one of the best ways to do that is to ensure that they're co-investing with you. If they're expecting that talent for free, I don't believe that is a good value exchange. I do not believe that that's a partnership. And so by them investing in the talent pipelining that you're doing, you're also creating, and we talked about this a bit yesterday, skin in the game, which keeps them engaged in the process as opposed to being at arm's length, right? The reason, what happens when we invest is we're super involved in the things we invest in. The same should be true of the employers that are investing in your pipelines, and we need to create repeatable mechanisms that make that government investment, employer investment, and AWS investment align so that we're all bought in and we have skin in the game and driving the outcome in terms of social impact.
Okay. So, talking from a collaborative strategy perspective, I have a hypothetical question, both to Tejas and to Nigel. I don't mean to put you on a spot here, okay? It's hypothetical. Would you be able to go back to your own organization with a proposal that say, hey, give me $100 million, I'll create you $1 billion worth of value. And that the $100 million, you give $1 million to all your CEOs and tell them they all got to create a $10 million value from the $1 million you invest with them, whatever new strategy they might be able to implement in their own markets. Would you be able to take such kind of a proposal up to head office?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can make any proposal we like, but the proposal has to stand on its business case.
Sure, absolutely,
right?
yeah.
But in terms of it, within Amazon, and believe me, there are many proposals like this that go up into very senior management, all the way up to Andy Jassy. The trick is to ensure that you've got a really strong case, that the case is thought out well. You've got the buy-in from agencies, from government, from partners to make this real, and that the ask is reasonable and
a 10x kind of a result is good. Invest $100 million to get $1 billion in value.
Absolutely, if we can show the numbers, like we can, between Tejas and Rani and I, we could build a paper, and this is one part of the culture of Amazon is that no idea is off the table. We have a process within Amazon of anybody within the organization can build what's called a narrative, which is usually a 2-page or a 6-page document that defines a problem statement, talks about the context, and then suggests a proposal for how we might want to address this. And so we can build one of those, we can plug in the numbers, we can talk to our various teams that are in charge of things like funding, various teams that are in charge of social impact programs, the finance team, get them to align around this, and then make sure that it goes up into senior management. So we have a way of doing this.
Yeah.
Whether or not it would be approved really depends on how
good is the proposal?
How good is it?
Yeah.
And then also that there are many outcomes. One outcome may be that the business doesn't see the value, right? I'm being completely transparent. That is a valid outcome, right? Another is that the business sees 100% of the value and says, yes, let's go. A third outcome could be that they say, well, maybe we want to go halfway between what you're asking and what we feel comfortable with investing at this point, right? So it is possible. We can do it.
Yep. And for governance, addressing governance issues and how the money is used, do you think, an organization like USAID could be the one that actually administers and keeps a track of how that fund is utilized? Does something like that work, Jeff? I don't know how does USAID interact with its donors, internal donors? Do you have donors like...
so USAID is the donor.
Correct. But can you also have co-funding with another donor?
Oh, absolutely. That's what...
so can you partner with AWS? Hypothetically, this is a hypothetical case. I'm just trying to understand a framework for a proposal that we could all collaboratively create and go back to them 6 months from now, right?
So every day, not every day, every week, I see more and more announcements coming out of USAID Washington about large-scale global partnerships with organizations like AWS, Google, Microsoft, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo. USAID has been involved in private sector engagement for our entire 60-plus years. And yes, we oftentimes put together partnerships. We have one here called Circle, which is about solid waste management. The answer is yes. Of course, we have to get into the details, but USAID and our corporate partners, meaning folks that we co-fund and co-manage things with, we're building one right now on lead, getting rid of lead poisoning. USAID doesn't have but $2.5 million across the entire world to invest in lead poisoning. And yet, we are leading this discussion globally, and Administrator Power just at UNGA launched the Partnership for Lead something. And it's like a $250 million program that USAID is putting in nothing, just our sweat equity and our logo and our convening authority. So the answer is yes, we can do all kinds of things with our partners where USAID's role is one of monitoring and evaluation or checks and balances or ensuring accountability, whatever the case may be.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, please. Yeah.
All of our USAID funded projects that we run today are co-funded by AWS and USAID.
Okay.
All of them.
So there's a model there already in
There's
place.
already a model. So all of the Padu project, the Talanta project, the Myanmar project, they are all co-funded.
Yeah. But we can put together, see, the idea is if it's collaborative, right? We would like everybody in the room here to be part of a program which is of common interest. And if the outcome is something that is tangible and is worth investing in, then training is just a part of it, right? All of us can deliver training. We all know that. That's why we are here in the room. But can all of us deliver an outcome that is desired by all the stakeholders?
Excellent challenge for our next community call. How does this team put together a large-scale project?
A global project. Why not a global project?
Yeah, that we do today in each of the countries separately.
Yeah. So APAC being the region, right? So let's do an APAC project. I think that's a good start. And if we can create a value proposition which appeals, I think the people to bounce it off would be Nigel and Tejas, because they would know, would this fly if we were to take it up? But if we bring the right partners, it gives confidence. Like having USAID on board absolutely gives credibility to this effort. And other partners, there could be other government partners, for example. Say, for Indonesia, I'm sure we can take care of the Ministry of Education. But all of you can bring in your government, if you can do that. Now we are talking about a collaborative strategy that's evolving out of a methodology that can be implemented in each country. But we put the funding ask into one basket. So rather than all of you going and looking for funding individually, we might look for collective funding for all of us and then administer through a secretariat, for example. And I think that the idea of Amazon being one of the partners, but Amazon can bring other companies to the table, right? Your partners. Do you have a lot of other ecosystem partners who could be the beneficiary of one such initiative, which is killing 1 million people, for example? I'm just throwing a number. This is just a wild number. But I'm trying to get to a point of starting thinking together collaboratively for a collaborative proposal. If we can put that together in 3 to 6 months, we're talking about something that can be, worth taking up. Then for Nigel and Tejas, it's worth taking something that is clear value and it's been thought through, not just a wild card idea, but a proper proposal with the right research behind it.
Yes, and a well-built proposal is something that, I'd absolutely be happy to work with Tejas and Rani to sponsor up into, the more senior parts of our organisation into the exec suite. I think the other thing, while we're talking about leadership principles, and I know you're thinking the same thing, the other thing, one of the other leadership principles that we have is something called Think Big, where we actually encourage Amazonians to think much larger than we're thinking today. And this is why I love this as an idea, because it really fits into that. There's another leadership principle called Invent and Simplify, which is how do we simplify the way that we engage with this community at scale. So I think, it does tick a number of boxes in a proposal. I think it'd be really interesting to put something together. So happy to look at that.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
So a little bit of a sidebar joke, internal joke for the Amazon people. So we almost think nowadays is it a 1, 2, or 6? And I'm looking at this as a 6-pager, right? Because a 1-pager is just an idea that you can just quickly jot down and share amongst your teams. A 2-pager is something that's a little bit more detailed, might have a 1 or 2 appendices at the end. But it's the written portion is done within 2, and then the 6-pager is really going into what's the background, what's the supporting documentation, what makes us think about this. But as Nigel said, anybody at Amazon, regardless of what their role is, has the ability to, at any given time, write a doc, and depending on the value of that doc and how well it's the case is built, But as Nigel said, one of the challenges that you get is this the corporate direction? So what if we could make $1 billion making toys? But if that's not our core foundation or core direction of the company, then maybe that's not accepted, right? And I just threw that out as an example. But something like this that can drive, that's centered around training, certification, skill building. And I know we keep talking about skills. The one thing sticky in my mind, it's not skill building, it's skills and placement building, right? So let's not talk about just the train numbers. We got to talk about the place numbers.
Yeah. Agree.
Good. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead. You want to?
No, I was just saying, yes, I 100% agree.
Okay. So what I'd like to do here is, I think we have arrived at a kind of starting point. And the starting point, I'll just summarize it very quickly because we have another 15, 20 minutes to finish the session. But the starting point is, yes, we have something to work together on. There is a collaborative strategy which can put in play. Maybe it'll take 3 to 6 months. Yes, we have Amazon willing to take it up to their senior management. Yes, it can include many other partners, not just Amazon. We can look at other collaborative partners. Maybe it's HP, I don't know, whoever else you work with. And so that could be a consortium of funding sources. And yes, I heard from Jeff that he's very willing to help have USAID look into it as a potential partner to help us to administer it. So the missing link would be, what is the organization that can work on it? And I had a suggestion to Rani, who's the chairperson of IDA. IDA is ASEAN Youth for Digital Action. Can it be like APAC Youth for Digital Action? If so, we can ask the IDA team to be the secretariat to put this together, working with all the collaborative organizations and the other stakeholders here, because IDA is actually working with Amazon. IDA is working with the government, working with ASEAN. We can expand that to also work with the other governments, etc., and start putting together something. Would you like to?
Yeah, the only thing I would just say is that USAID wouldn't administer. We would be yet another partner. But
Yes.
It would be administered by all of you.
Okay.
I mean, there would have to be some organization that's responsible for the financial accounting piece of it for all of the potential partners that are providing economic resources. And, if you're looking to build something to scale, USAID has a USAID ASEAN office that's here in Jakarta. That's managed out of our office in the Regional Development Mission in Asia and Thailand. But there are also other partnerships that you might want to encourage. Like, Australians are a big player in Southeast Asia and the Pacific, and you may want to, we could bring a lot. Again, you want a big tent if you want to have a big impact.
Fully agree. So can we spend 10 minutes now to think or get us started on what could be that one big idea or a proposal that we could put together? Because I don't think we'll arrive at the idea right now, but if we were to brainstorm it and go back home with the takeaways of what we discussed in the last 2 days and convene, like how Rani said at the next call, it could be the beginnings of how we put together a plan. So I'd like to provoke your thinking a little bit for what is that business opportunity which will get the approval of the top bosses of Amazon, for example, that yes, this makes business sense, right? Because absolutely, it has to make business sense. So I'll give you a story that is one of the favorite stories I like to tell my team when they join. Do you all know this company called Bata? Shoes company, right? So when I grew up in India, I always thought Bata was an Indian company. And I had no idea that it's actually an international brand. Every country actually goes through that because Bata is so well ingrained in every country, and they provide shoes for schoolboys and schoolgirls, right? So that was our first interaction with that brand. So this, I don't know how far the story is real, but it's a great story to tell. Okay, so apparently 200 years ago, whenever the head Bata company's management, I think they were in Netherlands or they were in UK or somewhere in Europe, right? The origins. Czechoslovakia, okay. So somewhere in Europe, I wasn't wrong. Okay, so they sent 2 people to India to go and check out, is there a market in India for Bata shoes? And in those days, there were no flights. So they got onto a ship and they sailed, I think, 3 months, finally reached India. The 2 guys went, this one went this way and one went that way, spoke to a lot of people, so-called market survey, market search. After 3 months there, they sailed back another 3 months, went back to head office and asked for a meeting with the owners of Bata. And he said, okay, so 9 months you've been away. What do you think? Is there business for us in India? So the first guy said, I went to India, I walked around and met everybody. They all walk around barefoot. Nobody wears shoes. I don't think we should even think about it. There's no point. So he said, okay, note it. And then he turned to the other guy and says, what's your view? He says, in India, nobody wears shoes. It's a huge opportunity. I think we should be there in India. So it's the same scenario. 2 people saw it in 2 different ways, right? I think the business opportunity comes in looking at what is the opportunity here in skilling? And I think there's a similar story. People are not skilled. So as much as we create a pyramid and we create programs, because that's what we do, right? 1,000 people apply, 100 get shortlisted, 20 people get the job. We have a pyramid, don't we? Everything we do is like that. We have 1,000 going down to 100, going down to 10. And then everybody focuses on the 10. Nobody looks at the 90 who didn't get anything out of this. And our skilling challenge is actually the 90. Because the 10 we don't need to do. People who can help themselves don't need to be helped by us. There's a whole bunch of people who have the resources, have the money, have the access, know what to do, have businesses, probably have come from a rich family, or have the ability to become a startup, or whatever. We are really looking at the bottom of the pyramid, or if you were to invert the pyramid, it is the top of the pyramid, but the top of the pyramid is a larger part, right? The bottom is at the, it's resting on the apex. So if you look at it from that point of view, you might see a very different kind of a business opportunity, which then justifies because you have the numbers there. I don't think we can go to Amazon or the top and say, look, we got a great program for 100 people. We need to have a program which is for the 90 who don't have a program. And if that translates to some kind of a business commercial model, then we are talking. So I think one of the ideas that might be a takeaway is start thinking of what can we do for the underserved, for people that we have not been taking care of so far. And I think we are closer to that, right? Aren't we? And because as Restart trainers and collaborating organizations, we are familiar with the 90 who don't get anything. And we don't need to worry about the, the Harvards of the world which take care of the 10 who get everything. So we are in a better starting point to come up with. Now, a business model obviously will result in business outcomes and then commercial outcomes, which then is of interest to the companies which are the off-takers, like how Jeff puts it. So if we are able to create that coalition of companies among all of us, that might be a starting point. So any immediate reactions to this? We can have a 5-10 minutes going around the room and then we can close. Yeah, Nalin, you want to go first? Yeah.
So any proposal we put, like Jeff was mentioning, we first need to see who's hiring. So we had this whole discussion yesterday. The people hiring, companies and universities tend to always ask us, can you bring AWS, Google, Microsoft to my campus? Okay, they are not hiring. The companies hiring, we don't know their names right now. These companies already staffed out. The Pertamina, PLN, they're already staffed out. The companies hiring are ones we don't know about. And that is where the hard work lies. So in this partnership and proposal, we should bring in companies that are doing the large-scale hiring now or over the next year or two. And these big names, they're contributors. They're not going to hire. So I just wanted to bring that perspective, that the target audience for placing these candidates are companies that we don't normally meet. And they don't come for these seminars because they're busy setting up their company. You need to reach out to them and bring them to the table.
Yeah, good point. Anybody else, please? Arvind Bali.
Yeah, so as far as skill is concerned, like there are multiple aspects. One is definitely, programs like AWS. But overall, if we see, there are a lot of demand, lot of requirement, and especially, people are needed everywhere, right, for some work. There's a, first of all, very big distinction between education and skill, right? Most of the countries today, who need this support is who are like colonies, right? And one big change which colonial time brought in was there were two different categories. One, people who were ruling, right? They were the ones, who were white collar, and then they were workers, right? One challenge which we see in India, and I think many other countries also have the similar thing, the work which you have to do with your hand, or blue-collar workers, that is first and foremost job is to make them aspirational, right? Today it is not aspirational, right? And a lot of people don't want to do it. There is a big demand. Like for example, we keep hearing that in Europe, in Japan and Korea, like a lot of people are required even for normal, like physical activities, nursing and those kind of things. But many people don't want to do it, right? So there is a lot of potential in those areas. And definitely, I think one aspect which has to be taken care of, and I think most of organizations are doing in India, Skill India mission is basically all around that we have to make skill as aspirational. We are taking it to schools so that like children, they understand that if you are going to do things with your hand, doesn't mean that you're somebody lower, right? In developed countries, definitely a person who is doing blue collar job is also earning almost the same kind of money what a white collar person does. But like in our country, it is not even 1/10, right? So that is the issue I think which has to be addressed. And when we are talking about such programs, I think that aspect also, if we can take care of making skill as aspirational, I think then it will bring a lot of good changes.
Hello?
Yeah. Please speak into we want to record it.
Hello? Yeah. I just wanted to make the point that, we've been talking about skills to jobs. So maybe there is, maybe we can just take a step back and, while jobs and placements lead us to this similar kind of thinking. So maybe we move away from the thinking that it always has to be placements and jobs, but really about how do we improve, how do they start contributing economically. I think that will be a game changer, because again, we don't know which skills are going to lead to what kind of jobs, because of some of the changes that we've been talking about, AI and everything else. The two opportunities that I see is one is the network gap. Again, we're talking about privilege, right? Again, you mentioned the Harvards. I mean, as a mother whose daughter is in Oxford, so I think the privilege that she enjoys is the company of people that she's met throughout. Again, even before she applied to the university, there were so many people advising her, cousins, uncles, aunts. That is something that a lot of the learners that we work with really miss. So how do we help them really, have a supporting network and community that cheers you on? The second one is the experience gap. How do we provide them with experiences that will help to supercharge their economic productivity? Thanks.
Just, I think I resonate with all of that, and also would like to bring an opportunity where right now the cloud infrastructure we are talking as AWS restart currently as it is, it's a demand driven as of now. Right, and it will take little bit of a futuristic shape. So we are looking at some this project or this new program to be more sustainable over the period of years. Would like to see, I think AWS as a technical vertical expert, they have much more industrial in depth about what is the future of these particular technologies. Maybe the development roadmap they have in terms of as an infrastructure, and then connecting that to completely thinking away from the job market, where not just entrepreneurial, but also to bring a more of solving the problem that doesn't exist, and ideation. So bring the youth into this particular program where they use technology and infrastructure for the ideation, which will create different economic opportunity, which can give job opportunities for the AWS Restart graduate. So it goes to a one level up. And this is for the problem solving of that particular approach where it doesn't exist. So number one. Number two, where you bring that element of, we also need like AWS or the partners need to be incentivized on their core objective why they exist. They are not mandated just to give 200,000 graduates a job employment. So in that incentive, if you can also find what is the future of business goals, business missions, and business approaches that these partner organizations or Amazon per se would have, maybe the e-commerce, future of retail industry, future of consumer markets. So you bring that, and we could also think about a thematic challenge to contribute to the partner organization, a thematic challenge, but it's not just an ideation. It's not just some guys coming and pitching out and that they'll be scoring and all of it. Much more at a mature level with all the support system, an idea which doesn't exist comes into it, where I think cutting off the innovation, commercial viability would be an important factor for this particular board paper to be accepted. So if we can have that element and little bit with a lot of youth and digital gap to become a blessing. Whatever we are talking about curse, the people don't know computing now. The future of computation, we got to unlearn a lot. One of the things we have a high risk of adapting is we have learned a lot of computation. The people, those who have not learned computation, will learn much more advanced computation because they don't have the process of unlearning. So I want to touch on those things. Thank you.
If I just may touch off on that a bit, I think there's a lot of space in the healthcare industry thematically. A place like Indonesia, 278 million people, the government is pushing the digitalization of the individual record keeping, AI using AI to address what is here a huge problem in tuberculosis detection. I think that identifying the need for upskilled IT professionals who can understand how to utilize things like Amazon's cloud computing so that there is a safe way for patient information to be stored and shared across Indonesia or any of the countries where you all work. I think that's an important area. And as I said this, I also thought cybersecurity is a huge challenge here in Indonesia, across the world, and is an upskill need for everyone. And so I see that as another thematic area where there is increased need for employability.
Fantastic. Yeah, Dila, please.
Cheers. I think further to that, I think there's a huge opportunity in tech adjacent roles, cloud adjacent roles, Gen AI adjacent roles. And in New Zealand in particular, that's where I see a lot of growth. So not all of our Restart graduates go into the cloud spaces. They go to help desk support roles. And sometimes that's a better match for the personality as well. And as to Rani's point earlier, if you have AWS at the table and someone is going to the cloud role, it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to end up in the AWS house. Yeah. The reality is that all of the skills are transferable. Different names potentially, different titles, but in the end, and I think for the massive business case that are going to be submitted on behalf of this group, if we could just focus on the non-tech roles as well, and the upskilling that's required for people who are receptionists, business assistants, EAs, and I think that will provide an opportunity for people to grow within businesses as well.
Can I make one quick point?
Please, go ahead.
So, again, yesterday I presented that chart with the arrow and I said we should think backwards. If the outcome is to give jobs, if it is not, and skilling for the sake of skilling, we can do all our intellectual tourism and pick people off the street and skill them, no problem. Your heart will be gratified, your soul will get points. But if the point is to skill them, please speak to the industry and ask them to select the candidates. They may not want people who are physically challenged, etc., etc. It's rude to say that. Ask them, who will you hire? And I will skill them to what you want. We are not doing charity here. We can't pick people up and say, I feel bad for this province, so I'm going to skill this with demography. No. If it is for jobs, if it is not, do what you like. But if they have to get jobs, first speak to the industry and ask them, who do you want? And I will find them, I will skill them based on what you want, and I will deliver you a product. If you don't think that way, we will keep skilling and we'll keep having this conversation.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, I'd like to double down on what my co-participant said here about if, of course, job placement or employment is very important. But if we are also looking towards the forward, just in terms of beyond job placement, what if it's also using the training for the youth to, let's say, build their own businesses? Or in this case, how can that be also integrated in the, let's say, high school program, bits and pieces of that? Just to give a bit of context to that, it might not be applicable in your countries, but in the case of the Philippines, because we're undergoing a massive education reform right now, nationwide, so there is that effort of our department or Ministry of Education to embed certain technical vocational skills training at the junior and senior high school level. So it could be an opportunity, and we are pushing for this at our organizational level. We're pushing for our Department of Education to at least consider digital skills to be part of the junior and senior high school curriculum. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Yes.
Hello. Can I add?
Can I have the mic to the very end?
I
of
would
the
like
table?
to add to this before
Please,
this
please,
point
yeah.
is over. Because I feel that it's a symbiotic relationship. Okay. On one hand, there are people who are earning a lot more than what they need and they are ready to share. There are people who need that and could utilize it, you know, for good things like our beneficiaries. There are people in the skilling sector who have the resources to, you know, provide them those necessary skills, and on the other hand, there are those employers who are willing to take them. Why should anyone in the chain suffer? Why should anyone starve? Everybody should benefit. So I think we should reach out, like he said, to the employers, throw us what you want, and we design programs, we design skill and talent the way you want, and everybody benefits. They can also profit, and we also can pass on our profits to the needy. So why not? Yeah.
Okay, great idea. Yes, please go ahead.
Sorry, like I forgot his name. I'm just answering to his points. Sorry, sir, I forgot your name. Next to you. So you just asked like what company wants actually, and accordingly you can just kill the talent. From the company standpoint, I have given an example as well yesterday. We always look for, since we are just looking for a skill-based hiring now, we always look for the candidate with the right attitude and capability to just do the job. So as long as they're just going to have the right attitude and the capability to do the job, we are ready to open the floodgates. Because I have given a real-time example as well yesterday, how we have hired a candidate through Generation SG and how we have created a headcount to convert the female as well at par to the industry standard. And we paid at par to the industry standard. Yeah.
Okay.
Just want to share...
Last few closing comments. Yeah, please go ahead.
Just want to share, just to answer to both of what them they said. In India, we have a very, very strong ecosystem, in the skilling ecosystem, what you call as sector councils. These sector councils are private-public partnerships. And they have the legitimacy to say that whatever course the government of India will certify for credits and for certification will come from the sector council. And in the sector council, the employers are a part of that sector council, and they are responsible for certification. So if you want any course to go and get certified, which will earn credits in your education system, it has to go to the sector council. So any of this large scale, proposal which you are putting in, there's a lot of support you will get from the sector council. You don't have to go anywhere. So you have to just select the right sector council, and they will support you proactively to pilot this with the skilling ministry. And in India, we have a lot of youths. So that proposal which you spoke about, the audacious plan, and India is a very IT-savvy country. So it will find a lot of traction in India. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm just saying that. So I thought I'd just share this.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, so lots of things coming.
Yeah.
And also, I think, we already have our new education. This National Education Policy, NEP 2020, India came out with that policy. Skilling has been made us essential part of it, right? Vocational education and skilling is part of it. We have already embedded it in that. And also, on skill, a lot of work is happening. And I think the most important part, which I'm hearing around, the biggest challenge, which most of the countries are facing, and at least in India, I can tell you very, very clearly, we are having this. I think industry is all the time complaining they don't get skilled manpower. And also at the same time, colleges, institutions have an issue that they are not able to get the placements or jobs. I think there's a big gap. So a lot of organizations like Cultus and other organizations, even Generation India, I think we have got Mr. Pandit here. I think they are trying to act as a bridge between industry and academia or education or skill institutes. And I think that is something which is definitely going to bring very good results. And of course, we need a lot of donors, because ultimately somebody has to fund these initiatives, and that is, I think, what is really required. So government is doing their part, but I think private organizations, if they do it, it will be really good. Thank you.
We have one last comment or last two comments, and then we will close. Yeah? This conversation can continue, yeah, beyond the time we have here. We do have to close this session because we have to finish up with a wrap up. So last two comments, yeah, please.
Yeah, India has come a long way since 1947. We were at 16% literacy rate. Now today we have crossed around 75 to 80% at the moment. And I just wanted to echo what Arun said, that India's skill space, it has increased at the largest pace. And we are the one who trains good number of individuals, in the skilling space. Now, there is a gap between the skilled individuals and the number of people finding placement. That's one of the government challenge as well. But in order to mitigate that, what our government is doing, they are conducting various placement camps across the country. Generally, very many private players, they play a key role. But in this case, where the government itself is conducting placement camps with in collaboration with various industries and as well as the district employment office, which, this may create an opportunity for the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid to come and gain employment. Because they don't get these kind of opportunities in the major cities, but a lot of rural communities, they benefit out of this initiative, which something maybe the other governments across, maybe think about it. Yeah.
Sure, thank you. One last comment before we close.
See, it is like a summary of most of the comments. We are not demand creators. We are demand fulfillers. That's what we always say. And I think in the larger scheme, in the long run, we are all implementers here. We are practitioners. We should also look at models which are actually placement linked, and not only for the word of it, but commercials are attached to placements, right?
Yes.
Let's put our mouths where the money is, and that's the key. Mindset change will come only when the commercials are there and your sustainability is at stake. I'm a firm believer in that, right?
Sure.
Till the time my sustainability is on just by training, it will just be training.
Sure, got it. So I think the biggest takeaway here is that every organization that I've had time to spend with in the last 2 days has something to offer which is actually a part of this master plan. So we are going to come back to you and take your advice and take some of the successes that you've had and put it into the master plan that we can put in. There's simple examples, like for placement, there's already a portal ready, Aubrey Jobs. There's for another part where you actually have a program where you're able to take trainers. That system already exists. Why do we have to start from zero, right? We should play off the strengths of each of us and each of our organizations, and that, if it goes into the plan, is a much more believable and more credible plan, because it's not being piloted, it's actually being implemented already somewhere. Piloting is already done. So we should be able to put together a program which is already based on the successes of all the participants here. Okay, so I'd like to actually close this. First of all, I'd like to thank Jeff for spending time with us. But more importantly, I think I would like to thank Uncle Lenny. Because we would not have had such a great conversation if we did not have Uncle Lenny, who influenced Jeff to do what he is doing today. I strongly believe that what he is doing today is greatly influenced by Uncle Lenny, which is why this is the second time I've heard him refer to Uncle Lenny. He's also there in the podcast that we talked. We had a podcast. I had a podcast with Jeff, and these are the stories actually that trigger something inside us to do what we are actually doing today. I'm sure all of you have an Uncle Lenny in your life. So thanks to Uncle Lenny, and I take this opportunity to thank all of you for being here. I would just like to give a certificate of appreciation to some of our key speakers, but we have a certificate for all of you, right? So that we don't make this a very long ceremony. I'm going to present the certificate firstly to Jeff. If we can have also then have a autograph. The second one, Tejas. Tejas, if I may have you here.
Sitting for so long.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And then we have Arvind Bali, please. Thank you, please. Thank you for coming all the way from India, especially for this forum. And the last one, Nigel. Nigel Watson, please. Thank you for making the time and joining us. Yes. Can we have Rani in the middle, please? Yeah. Please remember the date. The 4th of October. It could be the start of something big. If we are able to successfully put together a program and a proposal, we might be onto something here. So thank you very much. And I would like to ask now, Rani, do we have to get the MPOC people into the room? Not yet. Okay, we can. Okay. So may I ask Rani to take the floor and give us a wrap-up summary, because honestly, this whole thing was put together by Rani and her team. She is the initiator and instigator, chief instigator of this entire weekend. I mean, say this last 3 days. So over to you, Rani, please. Come here.
No, I want to read something through. It's okay for me to sit here, right? Hi, everyone. I had actually written something that I wanted to read out. And then after listening to everything, I just adapted everything back to a potential idea. So sorry, Sachin. So I want to say it's truly a pleasure to be here today to speak to all of you and about our work with ASEAN Youth for Digital Action. And I've put some information in there, Jeff, for your understanding as well. Thanks again for having me here, Sachin, sponsoring and co-sponsoring the event, so really appreciate it. IDA was established with a bold mission to empower youth across ASEAN through digital skills training, enabling them to become future leaders in our rapidly changing digital economy. Today, I want to share our plans for expanding our impact to reach 100,000 learners, the collaborating opportunities we have for you, and for the partnerships with everyone in this room and global organizations like USAID, GIZ, IFC, ADB, any funding organization that does large projects, and your key role in it. Let me start by discussing our vision to reach 100,000 learners across ASEAN region. This is not just a number. It is a representation of the impact we want to create. 100,000 young people equipped with digital skills, ready to transform their future and drive economic growth, as Pratibha mentioned, in their communities. And 100,000 might seem like a big number, but for us to achieve a truly cross-border, including India, including Australia and New Zealand, when you think about it, this is a pilot, right? So let me just say a few things. Our strategy revolves around leveraging a multi-stakeholder ecosystem by combining these skills, training skills, mentorship, and real-world examples and industry partners coming into to provide placement for these candidates. Ooh, my computer just stopped. Please excuse me. To achieve this, collaboration is critical. We cannot do it alone, and we see immense potential in partnering with organizations. Who you have in this room is a strong ecosystem with consistent output and a joint mission to develop candidates who come out of this program for placement, and that sits in all of our hearts. So this room is full of what I call execution, strategy, and placement. With the right employers, we will get there. Whether you are from the private sector, a government agency, or an educational institution, there are several ways we can work together. You can partner with us by helping us develop training content that's aligned with industry needs, providing mentorship opportunities, or even directly hiring our graduates. We also welcome collaboration in scaling our operations using our regional influence and resources to ensure that young people, no matter where they are, have access to the skills they need. The opportunities for youth, for your organization, or are also benefiting from the development of skilled workforce in their countries, which is ready, contributes immediately. When we started IDA, our intention was of the youth population that we have, we wanted to, who's contributing 3% only to the GDP, to increase the contribution. And that's where we started from. So that's where we are working backwards from. As we move forward with our goal to reach these 100,000 learners, I want to extend an invitation for each of you here. There is an opportunity for all of us to collaborate and build a sustainable ecosystem that benefits everyone involved. For the private sector, this means gaining access to diverse and skilled workforce that can meet the evolving demands of your industry. For government bodies, it is about empowering youth, reducing unemployment, and driving socioeconomic growth. For education institutions and NGOs, it's about ensuring that the youth you serve have clear pathways to fulfilling careers together. We can create an environment that fosters innovation, growth, and shared prosperity across ASEAN. And I want to use a favorite word of my boss, Tejas, shared responsibility. It's only when we all have shared responsibility that we can really aim to have the impact in huge projects. Our journey has only begun, and I say this as the IDA chairperson, and while the goal of reaching 100,000 learners is ambitious, I firmly believe that it is achievable with the right partnerships. Let us remember that it is not just about skills training, it's about changing lives and livelihoods, transforming communities and building the future where every young person has the opportunity to succeed. Thank you very much, so much for your attention today and the discussions. I look forward to discussing potential collaborations with all of you and working together to foster the next generation of digital leaders in ASEAN. Thanks, everybody.